Oh, where do I even start? My name is Sarah, and for the longest time, I thought I had it all figured out. Picture this. A cozy suburban home with a white picket fence. The kind you see in those feel-good movies where everything just works out. That's what Daniel and I built together. Or at least, that's what I told myself every morning as I sipped my coffee in our sunlit kitchen. The aroma of fresh brew mixing with the faint scent of cologne lingering from the night before. We've been married for 12 years. High school sweethearts who chase the American dream hand in hand. He was the ambitious one, climbing the corporate ladder at that big tech firm downtown, bringing home the bacon while I managed the home front. I quit my job as a teacher years ago to support him fully, hosting dinner parties for his clients, keeping the house spotless, even volunteering at the local charity events he said would boost his image. It felt right, you know? Like I was his rock, the loyal wife who made a success possible. And in return, he showered me with affection, or so it seemed. Little notes on the fridge saying, "You're my everything." Weekend getaways to the lake where we'd laugh under the stars. Our life was a postcard of perfection. Polite smiles at neighborhood barbecues. Shared dreams of retiring early and traveling the world. But looking back, there were these tiny cracks, like hairline fractures in a beautiful vase that you don't notice until it's too late. It started subtly the way these things often do. Daniel had always been the decisive one, and I admired that about him. He'd handle the finances because, as he put it, "I'm better with numbers, honey. You don't need to worry your pretty head about it." At first, it was a relief, not having to balance the checkbook or track expenses. He'd give me an allowance for groceries and personal stuff, and I'd nod along, grateful for his guidance. But over time, it crept into everything. "That dress is a bit too flashy for the office party, Sarah. Let's go with the blue one. It's more appropriate." I'd hesitate, feeling a flicker of doubt, but then I'd smile and change, telling myself he knew best. He chose our friends, too, steering us toward couples from his work circle, successful, polished people who talk stocks and promotions over wine. My old college buddies? They're not really our crowd anymore, he'd say with that charming grin, his hand squeezing mine just a tad too firmly. I'd laugh it off, a hesitant chuckle that echoed hollow in my chest, but inside, a quiet unease simmered. Was I imagining the edge in his voice when I suggested a girls' night out? "You don't need that, Sarah. We've got each other." It was all wrapped in love, or what I thought was love, protective, possessive, but wasn't that what marriage was about? Building a world together, even if it meant sacrificing a piece of yourself? Our days fell into a rhythm that felt serene on the surface. Mornings began with him kissing my forehead before heading out, his suit crisp and tie perfectly knotted. I'd wave from the porch, watching his BMW pull away, then dive into my routine. Yoga in the living room with the sunlight streaming through the bay windows, baking muffins that fill the house with warm vanilla scents, planning meals that cater to his low-carb diet. Evenings were our sacred time. Dinner by candlelight, soft jazz playing in the background as we debriefed his day. "You won't believe the deal I closed today," he'd boast, his eyes lighting up, and I'd listen raptly, my heart swelling with pride. We'd share dreams over dessert. A villa in Italy, kid someday, though he kept pushing that back, saying we weren't ready yet. "Let's focus on us first," he'd murmur, pulling me close on the couch, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm that sent shivers down my spine. It was intimate, comforting, like sinking into a warm bath after a long day. But beneath that calm, there was this undercurrent, a slight ripple that made me pause. His dismissive tone when I shared my own ideas, like wanting to start a small online boutique for handmade crafts. "That's cute, but it's not practical, Sarah. Stick to what you're good at." I'd laugh again, that uneasy titter, brushing it off as in being realistic. Yet, in quiet moments alone, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, I'd wonder, when did I start second-guessing every choice? Why did his approval feel like oxygen? Friends and family envied us. Or at least that's what they said at gatherings. "You two are goals." My sister would tease during holiday visits, eyeing our manicured lawn and the framed photos of us on exotic vacations. Trips he planned meticulously, down to the itinerary. I'd beam, playing the part of the content wife, but inside, a nagging voice whispered doubts. Was it normal for him to check my phone just to see who called? or to suggest I skip lunch with an old friend because they're too negative for you right now? He framed it as care, protection from the world's chaos, and I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. After all, he'd rescued me from a tough childhood, absent parents, financial struggles, and built a stable life for us. Gratitude kept me silent, loyal to a fault. But those small moments piled up like autumn leaves. His sigh when I burned dinner slightly, the way he'd interrupt my stories with his own more important ones. My laughter grew more hesitant, a forced melody that didn't quite reach my eyes. Still, I pushed it down, focusing on the good, the way he'd surprise me with flowers on random Tuesdays, whispering, "I couldn't do this without you." It was enough to keep the unease at bay, a serene facade masking the subtle control that had woven itself into our every interaction. Weekends were our escape, or so I thought. We'd drive to countryside, windows down, wind whipping through my hair as classic rock blared from the speakers. "This is living," he'd say, his hand on my knee, and I'd agree, the fresh air cleansing any lingering doubts. We'd hike trails lined with blooming wildflowers, their sweet fragrance mingling with the earthy scent of pine. Picnics by the stream, where we'd feed each other strawberries, laughing at inside jokes from our dating days. It felt real, those moments, unscripted joy that reminded me why I fell for him. But even there, his influence loomed, choosing the paths, deciding when to turn back. "It's getting late, Sarah. Don't want you getting tired." I'd nod, ignoring the twinge of frustration. Back home. The pattern resumed, him at his desk reviewing emails while I prepared tea, the steam rising like unspoken questions. I journaled sometimes, late at night under the covers with a flashlight, pouring out thoughts I couldn't voice. Am I happy or just comfortable? But I closed the notebook quickly, guilt washing over me. He was a good man, providing everything. Who was I to complain? As the seasons changed, so did the subtle shifts. Fall brought crisp air and golden leaves crunching underfoot during our evening walks. We'd hold hands, discussing future plans, maybe a bigger house, investments he was eyeing. "Trust me, Sarah, I've got all under control." His words were reassuring, but that dismissive edge crept in more often, like when I mentioned redecorating the guest room. No need to waste money on that. My response? That hesitant laugh again, a shield against a growing unease. Winter holidays amplified perfection. Twinkling lights on our tree, gifts wrapped with care, toast to our enduring love at parties. Yet, in the quiet after guests left, I'd feel it, a serene bubble on the verge of bursting. Spring renewed hope, with flowers blooming in our garden that I tended lovingly. Daniel praised my green thumb, but only if it fit his vision. Keep it neat, honey. Summer barbecues sealed the image. Polite smiles exchanged with neighbors, shared dreams voiced over grilled steaks. But beneath it all, the control tightened like a noose I couldn't see. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across our living room, I decided to surprise him by dry cleaning his favorite jacket. Reaching into the pocket for any forgotten items, my fingers brushed against a crumpled paper. Pulling it out, I unfolded a receipt for an expensive necklace, diamond-studded, dated just last week. My heart skipped. It wasn't for me. Our anniversary was months away, and he'd already given me earrings for my birthday. Who was it for? The serene facade cracked, unease flooding in like a storm. Little did I know, this was the beginning of unraveling everything I thought was perfect. The receipt burned a hole in my pocket for days. I kept it folded in the lining of my purse, a tiny square of betrayal I couldn't bring myself to throw away. Every time I reached for lipstick or keys, my fingers brushed the paper, and that diamond necklace flashed behind my eyes, sparkling, expensive, meant for someone else. I told myself it was nothing, a client gift, maybe. Daniel was always networking, always closing deals. But the lie tasted sour on my tongue even as I rehearsed it in the mirror, practicing the calm smile I'd wear when he came home. He came home late that night, tie loosened, cheeks flushed from whatever meeting had run long. The house smelled of the lasagna I'd kept warm for 2 hours, now congealed under foil. I met him in the foyer, the receipt trembling between my fingers like a guilty secret. "Daniel." My voice cracked on his name. "What's this?" He barely glanced at it before hanging his jacket. Slow, deliberate, like I was a child waving a crayon drawing. Receipt. For the necklace I bought Jenkins' wife. Close a Meridian account because of it. He brushed past me toward the kitchen, loosening his cufflinks. You're welcome. The words hit like ice water. Jenkins. The Meridian account. It made sense, too much sense. I followed him, lasagna forgotten. Why was it in your pocket? Why not tell me? He poured scotch, the clink of ice loud in the silence. Because you'd make a thing out of it, like you're doing now. His eyes flicked to the receipt, then to me, cold and flat. Honestly, Sarah, sometimes I think you look for reasons to be upset. I laughed, sharp, ugly, nothing like the hesitant giggle I perfected over the years. $1,000 necklace for another woman is a reason? Business, he snapped. You wouldn't understand. That was the first night he slept in the guest room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The receipt now smoothed flat on the nightstand like evidence in a trial I hadn't agreed to attend. The house felt too big, too quiet. Somewhere downstairs his phone buzzed, once, twice, then went silent. He'd started keeping it face down on counters, screen locked tighter than Fort Knox. When had that started? I couldn't pinpoint it, but the shift was there, like a radio station slowly drifting off frequency. The next morning, he was all smiles again, kissing my cheek as he grabbed coffee. Forgot to mention, heading to Chicago tomorrow. 3 days. He said it casually, like announcing the weather. Chicago. Again. That made 4 trips in 6 weeks. I nodded, stirring oatmeal I didn't want. Client dinners? Always. He tapped his phone against the counter. Face down, of course. You should use the time. Get your nails done. Treat yourself. The words were kind, but his eyes didn't meet mine. After he left, I stood in the doorway long after his car disappeared, the autumn wind whipping leaves across the driveway. Treat yourself. As if a manicure could fill the hollow space growing inside me. The gym became my refuge. Not for the workouts. I barely broke a sweat on the elliptical. But for Lisa, the only friend Daniel hadn't managed to veto. She'd been my neighbor before we moved to the better subdivision, back when life felt less like a performance. We met for coffee after spin class, steam curling from our cups as we sat on the patio overlooking the parking lot. You okay? She asked, eyeing the dark circles I'd tried to hide with concealer. You look haunted. I laughed, but it came out brittle. Just tired. Daniel's been traveling a lot. Lisa's brow furrowed. She stirred her latte, the spoon clinking softly. Funny, I could have sworn I saw him last week. At that new sushi place downtown, with a blonde. They were close. The world tilted. Blonde. Yeah, young. Laughing like they'd known each other forever. She reached across the table, touching my hand. I figured it was work. But she didn't look like any client I've ever seen. I drove home in a daze, Lisa's words looping in my head. Blonde. Clothes. Not a client. The receipt. The phone. The trips. Pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to assemble. That night, Daniel came home early. Unusual, he found me in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary, the knife thudding against the cutting board like a heartbeat. Hey! He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Lisa called. Said you seemed upset at the gym. I froze, Kara half-sliced. She told you? She's worried. Thinks you're imagining things. His tone was gentle, almost pitying. Sarah, you've been fragile lately. The stress is getting to you. The knife slipped, nicking my finger. Blood welled up, bright against the orange flesh. I'm not fragile. I saw the receipt. Lisa saw you. With a colleague, he cut in smoothly. We were celebrating the Meridian closure. You're blowing this out of proportion. He stepped closer, taking the knife from my hand. Let me see that cut. I yanked away. Don't touch me. His face hardened. You're being ridiculous. Then why are you lying to me, Daniel? My voice rose, cracking like thin ice. Why the secret phone? The trips? You've lost your mind, Sarah. He laughed. but there was no humor in it. Not everything's about you. Some of us have actual responsibilities. The words landed like a slap. I stared at him. This man I built my life around, who now looked at me like I was a stranger having a breakdown in his kitchen. Get out? I whispered. What? Get out. Louder this time. The knife clattered to the floor between us. He grabbed his keys from the counter. Fine. I'll stay at the Hilton. Cool off. When you're ready to apologize, call me. The door slammed behind him, the sound echoing through the empty house. I sank to the floor, back against the cabinets, blood from my cuts smearing the tiles. The silence pressed in heavy and accusatory. Outside, leaves skittered across the driveway where his car had been. Chicago tomorrow, he'd said. Another trip, another lie. But this time, I wasn't waiting with lasagna and excuses. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, the red stain blooming like a warning. My laptop sat on the counter, closed since I'd stopped working years ago. I opened it, fingers hovering over the keys. Bank statements, credit card logs, anything he hadn't thought to hide. The screen glowed in the dark kitchen, casting blue light on my face. I typed his email password, the one he'd used for everything until recently. Wrong. I tried variations. Our anniversary, my birthday, the dog's name from childhood. Nothing. Then, on a hunch, I tried the day of the Meridian closure, the one he'd supposedly celebrated with the blonde. Access granted. Emails flooded the screen, hundreds of them. My breath caught as I scrolled. Hotel confirmations. Restaurant reservations. A thread with someone named K. Heart emojis. Inside jokes. A photo attachment. Daniel's hand on a woman's thigh under a tablecloth, her manicured nails digging into his wrist. I clicked it open. The blonde from Lisa's story smiled back at me, younger, radiant, her head thrown back in laughter. The necklace, the diamond one, glinted at her throat. My stomach lurched. I ran to the bathroom, barely making it to the toilet before I was sick. The lasagna from nights ago came up bitter and burning. When it passed, I sat on the cold tile, forehead pressed to porcelain. The house creaked around me, settling into night like it, too, had secrets to keep. Back in the kitchen, I kept digging. Flight itineraries that didn't match his Chicago trips. A second credit card in his name only. Statements showing lingerie purchases, spa days, a weekend in Napa. Gifts, dates, a life I wasn't part of. The final email stopped me cold. From K, can't wait for tomorrow. With a red tie, I love unwrapping you. Winking face, sent yesterday. Tomorrow was his Chicago flight. I closed the laptop, hands shaking. The clock on the microwave blinked 2:17 a.m. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. My phone sat on the counter, screen dark. I could call him, demand answers. But I knew how that would go. More gaslighting, more crazy, more doors slamming. No, this time I get proof he couldn't deny. I open a new browser tab. Private investigator. The words looked foreign, like they belonged to someone else's life. But my fingers moved on their own, typing, searching, saving contacts. By dawn, I had a name, a plan, a reservation for the same Chicago flight, booked under my maiden name. Daniel thought he was leaving for another lie, but I'd be right behind him, watching every move. The perfect wife was done playing perfect. The routine was shattered, and from the pieces, I'd built something he'd never see coming. The house felt like a museum after Daniel left. Every surface dusted, every pillow fluffed, but no life breathing through it. I sat at the kitchen island with his laptop open in front of me. The screen's glow the only light in the pre-dawn gray. My fingers still throbbed from the knife nick, a dull reminder that pain could be useful. It kept me awake, kept me sharp. The emails with Kay were still there, taunting me with their casual cruelty. I printed them all, pages and pages of ink that smelled faintly of toner and betrayal, then tucked the stack into a manila folder labeled Taxes 2023 and slid it between old returns in the filing cabinet. Evidence needed camouflage. Coffee went cold while I worked. I started with the obvious, our joint checking account. Nothing jumped out groceries, mortgage, my allowance deposited like clockwork. But Daniel had always insisted on separate logins for privacy. His password wall was higher now, but people are creatures of habit. I tried the Meridian date again on the bank site. Denied. Then the dog's name plus the year we met. Denied. On a whim, I typed the necklace purchase date from the receipt. The dashboard loaded. My breath caught. A second account, business linked, with transfers I'd never seen. 5,000 here, 8 there, always on Fridays, the nights he claimed team happy hours. The memo lines were bland. Consulting K. Ellis. K, my stomach twisted. I followed the money backward like breadcrumbs. It led to a savings account in his name only, opened 3 years ago. Balance, $187,432. I stared at the number until it blurred. That was our emergency fund, our Illy Villa money, the cushion I begged him to build just in case. He'd told me it was under 50 grand. Another lie, stacked on the pile. I printed those statements too, the printer whirring like an angry bee in the silent house. The folder grew thicker. I labeled a new one savings and hid it behind the water heater in the basement. Daniel never went down there. He paid a guy for that. Daylight crept in, pale and unforgiving. I showered, scrubbing until my skin stung, then dressed in the plainest clothes I owned, jeans, gray sweater, hair in a knot. The perfect wife wouldn't be seen digging through her husband's life, but Sarah the investigator could blend into background. I drove to the library downtown, the one with public computers no one monitored. My hands shook as I logged into the county clerk's website. Property records, business filings, anything with his name. Nothing under Daniel Reed alone, but an LLC popped up. DKR Holdings. Registered 2 years ago. Officer, Daniel K. Reed. Address, a P.O. box I didn't recognize. I scribbled it down, heart hammering. The library smelled of old paper and burnt coffee. An elderly man snored in the corner. I felt invisible, which was exactly what I needed. Back home, I tackled the safe in his office, the one he'd installed after his promotion. The combination was our wedding date. Of course it was. Inside, passports, both of ours, though mine hadn't been used in years. Birth certificates, a flash drive labeled backup. I pocketed the drive and closed the safe, spinning the dial like nothing had happened. The flash drive held spreadsheets, rows and columns of numbers that made my eyes cross at first, until I saw the pattern. Offshore accounts, Cayman Islands, withdrawals timed with his trips, deposits from DKR Holdings. And there, buried in a folder called Personal, a subfolder, K. Photos, dozens of them. The blonde, Kristen, apparently, laughing on a yacht, Kristen in lingerie on a hotel bed, Kristen wearing the diamond necklace like it had always belonged to her. My necklace, our money. I sat back, the chair creaking under me. The room smelled of his cologne, trapped in the carpet fibers. I wanted to scream, to hurl the monitor across the room, but I didn't. Grief would come later. Right now, I needed facts. Social media was riskier. He'd made me delete my accounts years ago for security. But I still had an old Instagram login on my phone, dormant since college. I searched his name. Private. Then hers. Kristen Ellis. Public. The profile loaded like a punch to the gut. Photos of them together. Tag at wineries, ski resorts, a beach in Tulum. Captions. Best weekend with my favorite person, two hearts, #bless. The dates matched his business trips. One photo stopped me cold. Daniel's arm around her waist, both informal, we're at a gala I'd never heard of. The timestamp, last month, the night he'd come home late claiming food poisoning. She wore a red dress that hugged her like a second skin. He looked at her the way he used to look at me, before the dismissive sighs, before the face-down phone. I screenshot everything. Fingers flying. The folder in the cloud grew. Bank statements, emails, photos, LLC filings. I named it insurance, because that's what it was now, my parachute out of this burning plane. By evening, the house was dark again. I hadn't eaten, hadn't moved from the office chair. My phone buzzed, Lisa checking in. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't talk yet. Words felt too small for what was building inside me. I needed expertise. Someone who spoke legalese fluently, who could tell me if this was just adultery or something criminal. My old college roommate, Megan, flashed in my mind. She'd gone to law school, made partner at a firm in the city. We hadn't spoken in years. Daniel didn't like her ambition. I scrolled her contact, thumb hovering. The phone rang twice before she answered. Sarah? Oh my God, is everything okay? I swallowed the lump in my throat. No, it's not. I need to know how far betrayal can go before it's illegal. Silence on the line. Then start from the beginning. And don't leave anything out. I talked until my voice gave out. Receipts, accounts, photos, the offshore trail. Megan listened without interrupting. The way she used it during dorm room breakdowns over bad grades. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. Sarah, this isn't just cheating. This is embezzlement, fraud, possibly tax evasion. That LLC, if he's funneling marital assets through it, without your knowledge, you have ground for divorce. And criminal charges if you want to push it. Criminal. The word landed heavy. I'd wanted truth, not a courtroom. But first, she continued, we protect you. Freeze what you can. Document everything. I'll send over a PI contact. Someone discreet. And Sarah, you don't have to decide tonight, but you're not alone anymore. I hung up staring at the folder on the desk. Pages fan out like a deck of cards. The blonde's face smiled up at me from a printout, mocking. I flipped it over. The grief came then, sudden and brutal. I curled on the office floor, sobbing into the carpet that still smelled like him. 12 years. Our dreams. The Italy villa that was never for us. I cried until my ribs ached, until the tears ran dry and left salt tracks on my cheeks. When I sat up, the room was pitch black. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. Daniel would be on a flight by now, probably sipping champagne with Kristen, laughing about the gullible wife back home. I wiped my face with the sleeve of his sweater, the one I'd stolen from the laundry. It smelled like him, and for a moment, I hated myself for still loving that scent. Then I stood, legs shaky but steady enough. I opened the safe again, took my passport, closed it. In the kitchen, I poured the cold coffee down the drain and started a fresh pot. The machine gurgled like it approved. Megan's PI contact emailed within the hour. Background checks, asset searches, surveillance packages. Prices made my eyes water, but the offshore account had a linked debit card I'd never seen. I used it to pay the retainer. Let Daniel fund his own downfall. By dawn, I had a plan. Step 1, tail him on the next trip. Step 2, gather more proof. Step 3, decide if I want him in a courtroom or just gone from my life. I stood at the window, watching the sun rise, pink bleeding into orange over the manicured lawn. The perfect house looked smaller now, like a dollhouse I'd outgrown. My reflection in the glass was pale, determined. The hesitant laugh was gone. In its place, a quiet, controlled resolve. Daniel thought he'd built an empire on my silence. But empires crumble when the foundation wakes up. Megan's office smelled like vanilla and old books, the kind of scent that wraps around like a blanket on a cold night. She'd texted me to come after hours, said the building would be empty, no prying eyes from her partners. I parked 2 blocks away, hoodie up, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted out. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt endless, each ding echoing my pulse. She met me at the door herself. No receptionist, just her in jeans and a blazer, hair twisted up with a pencil. Get in here, she whispered, locking the door behind me. The conference room was dim, lit only by a single desk lamp and a candle flickering on the table, vanilla, matching the air. Papers were spread like a battlefield. My folder, printouts, a legal pad covered in her neat scrawl. Sit. She pushed a mug of tea toward me. Chamomile, steam curling up like a question mark. You look like hell. I laughed, the sound rusty. Feel worse. She didn't sugarcoat. Good. Hell is motivating. She flipped open the folder, pages rustling. We've got enough here for divorce on fault grounds, adultery, financial infidelity. But you want more than half the house, right? You want him to feel this. I nodded, throat tight. The candle flame danced, throwing shadows on the walls. I want him exposed, not just gone. Megan's eyes softened, but only for a second. Then we played chess, not checkers. She pulled a whiteboard from the corner, markers squeaking as she drew columns. Assets, evidence, risks. First, the money, that offshore account, Grand Cayman. We can't touch it directly, but we can trace every transfer. I've got a forensic accountant on retainer. Discreet. Expensive, but Daniel's paying. She winked, tapping the debit card printout. I sipped the tea. It burned my tongue, grounding me. The LLC? DKR Holdings. Shell company. He's using it to hide income, probably skimming from his firm. That's fraud. If we prove it, the firm flips on him to save face. Criminal charges, Sarah. Real ones. She wrote embezzlement in red, underlined twice. The word hung in the air like smoke. I stared at it, the candle wax pooling. He'll fight dirty. Let him. Megan capped the marker. We've got surprise. He thinks you're still baking lasagna and waiting by the door. She slid a photo across the table, the one from Kristen's Instagram, Daniel's hand on her thigh. This, admissible, time-stamped, will subpoena her phone records too. I traced the edge of the photo with a trembling finger. She's so young. 26, Megan said, checking her notes. Junior marketing associate at his firm. Started right after the LLC was formed. Coincidence. She didn't wait for an answer. We'll depose her. She'll crack. Mistresses always do when the money dries up. The plan unfolded like a map. Freeze joint accounts quietly through a court order. Hire the PI to tail his next trip. Document every expense on the secret card. Megan drew arrows, timelines, contingencies. If he tries to drain assets, we've got a TRO ready. Temporary restraining order. Judge owes me a favor. I watch her work, the candlelight gilding her cheekbones. This was the Megan I remember from college. Debate champ, the one who'd argue a professor into the ground. I'd envied her fire once. Now I needed it. What about me? My voice cracked. I haven't worked in years. No resume, no savings he didn't control. Megan stopped writing. She reached across the table, gripping my hand. You've been the good wife too long. Time to be the smart one. Her grip was warm, steady. We'll get you spousal support. Lifetime if we prove long-term manipulation. And the house? Yours. He bought it during the marriage. It's marital property. Lifetime. The words settled in my chest like a stone. I'd imagined freedom, not a monthly check from the man who'd gutted me. But Megan's eyes were fierce. It's not charity. It's justice. He stole your career, your autonomy. We take it back in dollars. The candle sputtered, wax dripping onto the saucer. Outside, the city hummed, distant sirens, a horn blaring. Inside, the room felt like a bunker, safe and conspiratorial. I exhaled, the first full breath in days. Next steps, Megan continued, flipping to a fresh page. You go home. Act normal. Smile when he calls from Chicago. Cry if you need to. It sells a performance. She slid a burner phone across the table. This is for us only. No texts on your regular line. He might be monitoring. I turned the cheap flip phone over my hands. It felt foreign, like a prop from a spy movie. What do I say if he notices I'm different? Tell him you're grieving a friend's divorce. Plausible. Emotional, but not suspicious. She tapped the legal pad. Meanwhile, the PI starts tomorrow. Full surveillance. Photos. Audio if we can get it legally. Audio. My stomach flipped. You mean bug his car? Warrant first. The hotel rooms? Public spaces? Fair game. She grinned. Wolfish. We'll catch him with his pants down, literally. I laughed then. A real one. Surprising us both. The sound bounced off the walls, loosening something knotted inside me. Megan joined in, her chuckle low and satisfied. We worked until the candle burned low, wax pooling like tears. By 2 a.m., The whiteboard was a web of strategy, dates, dollar amounts, potential witnesses. Kristen's name circled in red. The PI's contact info starred. A timeline to filing. 60 days if we move fast. Megan walked me to the elevator. The hallway silent except for our footsteps. "You're stronger than he ever gave you credit for," she said, hugging me tight. "Text me when you're home safe." The ride down was quieter, the city asleep below. I clutched the burner phone like a lifeline. In the parking garage, my car looked smaller, less like the cage it had been. I drove home with the windows cracked, cold air slapping my face awake. The house was dark when I slipped inside. I left the lights off, navigating by memory. Past the kitchen where I'd found the receipt, up the stairs where his cologne still lingered. In the bedroom, I opened the closet, pulled out the suitcase he used for trips. Inside, a red tie, the one Kristen liked. I held it to my nose. Her perfume, faint but there. I dropped it like it burned. I slept in the guest room, door locked, burner phone under the pillow. Dreams came in fragments. Daniel laughing with her on a yacht, me standing on the dock with empty hands. I woke before dawn, the house creaking around me like it was stretching after a long lie. Days blurred into strategy. I smiled when he FaceTimed from Chicago, eyes puffy from fake tears about Lisa's divorce. He bought it, voice syrupy with concern. "Take care of yourself. Honey, I'll be home Sunday." I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. The PI's first report came via encrypted email. Photos of Daniel and Kristen at a rooftop bar, her hand on his chest, his lips on her neck. Time-stamped. GPS coordinates. I forwarded it to Megan without comment. Megan's texts were clipped professional. Good. Keep him comfortable. Then, one night at 11:47 p.m., the burner buzzed. I was in the kitchen, reheating soup I wouldn't eat. Her voice was tight. "Sarah, I found something. You might want to sit down." I gripped the counter. The soup forgotten. The candlelight from her office flashed in my mind. Vanilla, strategy, the promise of justice. Whatever she'd found, it was big. The game was about to change. Megan's call came at 11:47 p.m., but the words didn't sink in until I was staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. The burner phone clutched to my chest like a hot coal. Condo in her name. Megan had said, Riverfront, $500,000, paid in full last year. The address she texted was a glass tower downtown, the kind with concierge service and views that cost more than most people's houses. Daniel had never mentioned real estate. He'd told me we were saving for the future. I laughed into the dark, a bitter sound that echoed off the walls. The future was apparently a love nest with river views. Sleep never came. By sunrise, I was at the kitchen table with coffee gone cold and a property deed pulled from the county, records Megan emailed. Owner, Tanya Moore. Not Kristen. Tanya. The name hit like a second betrayal. Kristen was the decoy. Tanya was the investment. I printed the deed, the ink still wet when I slid it into the growing folder. $500,000. Our money. My sacrifice. His lies. Megan's next text was simple. PI confirmed. She lives there. Alone. For now. Alone. Meaning Daniel kept her like a secret vacation home. Visited when the mood struck. Funded by the life he convinced me was ours. I stared at the address until the numbers blurred. 2407 Riverside Towers. Unit 1804. 18th floor. I knew the building. We'd driven past it on date nights, Daniel pointing out the lights twinkling over the water. Someday, he'd said. I believed him. I needed to see it. Not photos. Not reports. Her. The woman living in my future. The plan formed fast. I called the building's leasing office on the burner, voice steady as I spun a story. Sarah Bennett, relocating from out of state, looking for a short-term rental. The agent, perky eager, offered tour of a model unit same day. We have one on the 18th floor available next month, she chirped. Same layout as 1804. Perfect. I dressed like someone who belonged. Tailored blazer, silk blouse, heels that clicked with authority. Makeup covered the shadows under my eyes. In the mirror, I looked like the old Sarah, polished, composed. The one who smiled at dinner parties while Daniel decided her worth. I slipped the wedding ring off, tucking it into the glove compartment. Today, I was a buyer, not a wife. The lobby smelled of marble and money. A fountain trickled in the corner. The concierge barely glanced up as I signed in. The agent, Chloe, met me with a clipboard and a smile too wide. "Ms. Bennett, right this way." The elevator was all mirrors and soft jazz. I watched my reflection ascend. 18 floors of glass and steel carry me toward the truth. Unit 1804 was empty, staged with rental furniture, sleek, impersonal. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the river, sunlight glinting off the water like scattered diamonds. Chloe rattled off square footage, amenities, the gym with a yoga studio. I nodded, murmuring appreciation, but my eyes were on the wall shared with 1805, Tanya's unit. The layout was a mirror image. Same view, same life, stolen. "Would you like to see the balcony?" Chloe asked, sliding the door open. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of river and city. I stepped out, gripping the railing. From here, I could see the bridge where Daniel and I had our first kiss. He proposed on that bridge. I'd said yes under fireworks. Now, 18 floors up, I was staring at the monument to his lies. Chloe's phone buzzed. "Excuse me 1 second." She stepped inside, leaving me alone. I moved fast. The balcony door to 1805 was cracked open. Someone airing out the place. Music drifted through, jazz soft and sultry. A woman's laugh. I slipped off my heels, padding silently across the threshold. The unit was lived in. Shoes by the door, Louboutins, red soles flashing. A purse on the counter, Hermes, the kind that cost more than my first car. Photos on the fridge, Tanya and Daniel in Paris, her head on his shoulder, the Eiffel Tower behind them. My stomach lurched. I was in her kitchen, her home, paid for with my tears. Voices from the living room. I ducked behind the island, heart slamming against my ribs. Tanya's voice, light, confident. "The necklace is stunning, babe. You shouldn't have." Daniel's murmur, too low to catch. A kiss. The wet sound of it turned my blood to ice. I peeked around the corner. She was on the couch, legs tucked under her, wearing a silk robe that barely covered anything. The diamond necklace, the one from the receipt, glinted at her throat. Daniel sat beside her, tie loosened, hand on her knee. He looked relaxed, happy, the way he hadn't looked at me in years. Tanya held up her wrist, a bracelet catching the light. "And this? Tiffany's? You're spoiling me." She leaned in, kissing him slow. "What's the occasion? Does there need to be one?" He smiled, the same smile he'd used to convince me the world was ours. "Just because you deserve it." I pressed a hand to my mouth to keep from making a sound. The bracelet. Another receipt I'd found. $12,000. Charged the secret card. The robe, La Perla, from a Napa trip. Every inch of her screamed money. My money. The life I'd scrubbed floors and hosted parties to build. Chloe's voice echoed from the hall. "Miss Bennett." Panic surged. I slipped back to the balcony door, heels in hand, just as Chloe returned. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I said, voice steady. "I'll think about it." I smiled, the muscles in my face aching. "One question," neighbors quiet. "Oh, yes. 1805 is a single woman. Travels a lot. Very private." "Private? I bet." Back in the elevator, I watched the floors descend, the jazz mocking me. In the lobby, I thanked Chloe, promised to call. Outside, the sun was too bright, the air too clean. I walked to my car on autopilot, sliding into the driver's seat before the mask cracked. I sat there for an hour, staring at the tower. 18th floor, Unit 1805, Tanya Moore. She wasn't Kristen. Kristen was the fling, the office distraction. Tanya was the future, the apartment, the jewelry, the life he'd planned without me. My phone buzzed Megan. "P, I got photos. They're inside now. You okay?" I typed back, saw her, wearing my necklace. Her reply was instant. come to the office. We're ending this. But I didn't drive to Megan. Not yet. I opened the glove compartment, took out the wedding ring. It felt heavier now, like it carried the weight of every lie. I slipped it on, the gold cold against my skin. Then I started the car. The drive to the tower's parking garage was muscle memory. I circled until I found Daniel's BMW, black, pristine, parked in a reserved spot labeled 1805. Of course. I pulled in beside it, killing the engine. I sat there, watching the elevator banks. 10 minutes. 20. Then they emerged, Daniel in his suit, Tanya in yoga pants and a crop top, the necklace still gleaming. She kissed him goodbye, long and slow, her hand on his chest. He watched her walk away, a smile on his face I'd never seen directed at me. When he drove off, I followed at a distance, not to confront. Not yet, just to know his route, his habits. The PI could only do so much. I needed to feel the shape of his betrayal in my bones. He stopped at a jeweler downtown. I parked across the street, watching through the window as he browsed cases. The clerk brought out a ring, emerald cut, massive. He nodded, signed something. Another purchase. Another future. I drove home in a daze, the city blurring past. The house felt smaller, the walls closing in. I went straight to the basement, pulled out the folder, added the deed. The photos from the PI, Daniel and Tanya on the balcony, her robe slipping off one shoulder. I printed the parking permit photo I'd snapped, labeled it Homewrecker Haven. Night fell. I sat on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets where I'd found the receipt weeks ago. The necklace, the apartment, the ring. It wasn't just cheating, it was theft. My life, repackaged and gifted to a stranger. The burner buzzed. Megan again. Forensic accountant traced the condo purchase. Came from the offshore account. We've got him on tax fraud. IRS loves this stuff. I stared at the screen. Tax fraud. Criminal. The word didn't scare me anymore. It felt like justice. I stood, legs steady for the first time in weeks. In the hallway mirror, I looked different, eyes harder, mouth set. The good wife was gone. The smart one was rising. I opened the front door, stepped onto the porch. The night air was cool, the stars sharp overhead. Somewhere across the river, Tanya was admiring her new ring, Daniel planning his next lie. I whispered into the dark, the words carrying on the wind. You have no idea what's coming. Daniel came home on a Sunday that smelled of rain and exhaust, his suitcase wheels rattling across the threshold like accusations. I was in the kitchen, slicing apples for a pie I had no intention of baking. The knife moved in steady arcs, the blade catching the overhead light. He kissed the air beside my cheek, the way he did when he thought I wasn't looking. Missed you, he said, but his eyes were already on his phone, thumbs flying. Face down on the counter, within seconds. I smiled, the expression practiced in the mirror that morning. Rough trip? Brutal. He loosened his tie, the red one Tanya liked. Clients are sharks. Lost a Meridian account after all that work. He sighed, theatrical. We need to tighten belts, Sarah. Market's volatile. The knife paused mid-slice. Tighten belts. The phrase landed like a joke in poor taste. I set the blade down, wiped my hands on a towel. How tight? He didn't look up. Sell some jewelry. The tennis bracelet. Maybe the pearl earrings. We'll recoup. The bracelet he'd given me for our 10th anniversary. The pearls from our honeymoon in Japan. I felt the laugh bubble up before I could stop it. Sharp, delighted, nothing like the hesitant giggle he knew. You want to save money, Daniel? Fine. Let's save everything, right where you can't touch it. His head snapped up. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. It means I'm done pretending the vault is empty when you're building condos across town. The color drained from his face, then rushed back in a blotchy wave. You've been drinking. Coffee. Black. Like my mood. I picked up the knife again, resumed slicing. The apple fell into perfect halves. Dinner's at 6. Try not to be late. He stared for a long beat, then stalked upstairs. I heard the office door slam, the safe dial spinning. Let him look. The flash drive was gone, replaced with a decoy labeled Taxes 2022. Inside, nothing but old grocery lists. Megan's office had become my second home. We met after dark, the candle replaced by a banker's lamp that threw green pools across the conference table. Files tower like battlements. Bank transfers, offshore statements, the condo deed, Kristen's phone logs, Tanya's jewelry appraisals. The PI's latest drop sat in the center. Photos of Daniel leaving the riverfront tower at 2 a.m., Tanya waving from the balcony in one of his shirts. Megan slid a new folder across. Gift tax returns. He never filed. IRS will eat him alive. I flipped it open. Form 709. Blank where it should list a condo. The necklace. The bracelet now glinting on Tanya's wrist in a candid shot. How much in penalties? North of 200 grand, plus interest. And that's before criminal evasion. She tapped a highlighter against her palm. We're ready to freeze the offshore. One motion. I traced the condo photo with a fingertip. Tanya's smile was triumphant, teeth white against red lipstick. He asked me to sell my pearls today. Megan's laugh was low. Let him try cashing those in. Appraiser's report says they're cubic zirconia. Swapped them last week. She winked. Your real ones are in my safe. The web tightened in small, satisfying increments. I opened a checking account in my name only. Online, paperless. Funded by the secret debit card before Daniel noticed the statements. The balance climbed. $18,000, $24,000, $31,000. Money he'd never miss until it was gone. At home, I played the part. I cooked his favorite salmon, poured wine, listened to fabricated tales of market crashes and demanding bosses. When he complained about the bracelet's absence from the jewelry box, I blinked innocently. Must have misplaced it. I'll look tomorrow. He started watching me. Not with love, with calculation. His phone stayed face down, but I caught him glancing at the screen when notifications buzzed. Once, I saw him type a text, delete it, type again. I smiled into my coffee. Let him sweat. The PI tailed him to a lunch with Tanya. Outdoor cafe, her hand over his, the emerald ring now sparkling on her finger. The photo arrived while I folded laundry. I printed it, pinned it to the corkboard in Megan's office next to the condo deed. A gallery of sins. Megan added posts like flags. Subpoena ready bank. Deposition schedule Kristen. IRS tip line anonymous. The board looked like a war room. It was. Daniel grew bolder or desperate. One night, he cornered me in the hallway, breath smelling of scotch. You're different, he said, eyes narrowed. What's going on? I met his gaze, unflinching. I'm awake. He grabbed my wrist hard. Don't play games, Sarah. I twisted free. The motion smooth from self-defense classes I'd started at the gym. Touch me again and you'll regret it. He backed off, palms raised, but the mask slipped. I saw fear flicker. Good. The jewelry request escalated. He laid the tennis bracelet on the breakfast table, like a gauntlet. Pawn it today. We need liquidity. I picked it up, the diamonds cold against my skin. Liquidity, I repeated. Funny word for theft. His jaw clenched. You're paranoid. Paranoid keeps receipts. I slipped the bracelet into my pocket. I'll handle it. I drove straight to Megan. She photographed it, logged the serial number, then locked it in the safe with the pearls. Insurance appraisal's in the file. He tries to claim it's stolen. We've got proof it's fake. Night after night, we worked. I learned terms I'd never needed. Forensic accounting, constructive trust, dissipation of marital assets. Megan drew flowcharts on the whiteboard. Money in, money out, arrows looping like nooses. The condo sat at the center, a $500,000 black hole. Daniel started packing for another trip. This time Miami. He kissed me goodbye at the door, suitcase in hand. 3 days. Try not to worry. I smiled, sweet as pie. Take pictures. The second his taillights vanished, I was on the burner. He's airborne. Go. The PI followed him to the airport, then to a private terminal. Not Miami, Nassau. Tanya waiting planeside. sundress fluttering, emerald ring flashing as she waved. They boarded a charter jet. Destination, the Caymans. Megan hooped when the photos landed. Offshore withdrawal in person. Dumbass. She printed boarding passes, fuel receipts, a selfie Tanya posted mid-flight. Caption, "Island vibes of my forever." Forever. I stared at the word until it lost meaning. Back home, I staged the house. I moved Daniel's clothes to the guest room, left a note. Need space. I changed the safe combination to Tanya's birthday. Let him puzzle that out. I boxed his awards, his framed degrees, stacked them in the garage. The house began to feel like mine again. Megan called at midnight. Accountant cracked the Cayman ledger. He's moved another $300,000 this year, all to Tanya's accounts. She paused. There's a trust in her name. Beneficiary, unborn child. The air left my lungs. Child. The word was a bomb. I sat on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets where it all started. The receipt, the knife nick, the apples. I laughed until I cried, then cried until I was empty. Megan's voice softened. We add paternity to the suit. If there's a kid, DNA test. He pays either way. I wiped my face. Do it. The final pieces clicked. Subpoenas drafted. Freeze order signed by a judge who golfed with Megan's father. IRS tip submitted through a prepaid phone. Voice distorted. Details precise. The PI booked a flight to Nassau, camera ready. Daniel landed back on Thursday, tanned and smug. He found me in the office, shredding old statements. What the hell? Spring cleaning. I said, not looking up. You're in the guest room. He started to argue, then noticed the safe, dial scratched from failed attempts. His face went slack. Sarah, save it. I stood, papers fluttering. You want to talk money? Let's talk. Over coffee. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. He opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time, he had no script. That night, Megan and I met one last time. The conference table was clear except for a single manila envelope, thick, sealed, labeled in Megan's neat script. Daniel K. Reed, personal and confidential. Inside, divorce petition, asset freeze motion, IRS audit notice, paternity demand, restraining order. Every page a landmine. Megan slid it across. Courier delivers at 8:55. You'll be sipping coffee when he opens it. I ran my fingers over the seal. He'll fight. Let him. We've got the receipts. She smiled, sharp and satisfied. When he opens this, his world ends. I tucked the envelope into my bag. Outside, the city was quiet, the river a dark ribbon below. I drove home with the windows down, cold air whipping my hair. The house lights glowed. Mine now, not ours. I parked, sat in the silence. Tomorrow, he'd wake to ruin. Tonight, I slept in our bed alone, the sheets cool and vast. I whispered into dark, the same words I'd said outside Tanya's tower, but stronger now. You have no idea what's coming. The web was tight. The spider was ready. The courier's knock came at 8:55 a.m. sharp, a polite rap that sounded like a gavel in the quiet house. I was at the kitchen island, coffee steaming in a mug that read, World's Best Wife, a gag gift from years ago that now felt like irony dipped in acid. Daniel shuffled downstairs in boxers and a T-shirt, hair tousled, eyes squinting against the light. He signed for the envelope without a word, the pen scratching like claws on paper. I sipped my coffee. Black, no sugar, the way I'd learned to take everything now. He tore it open right there in the foyer, paper spilling across the marble like confetti at a funeral. I watched his face cycle through confusion, recognition, horror. The divorce petition first, bold letters screaming irreconcilable differences, fault, adultery, financial dissipation. Then the asset freeze order, the IRS audit notice. The paternity demand clipped to a sonogram photo the PI had lifted from Tanya's trash. His knees buckled. He caught himself on the console table, knocking over a vase. Water, and lilies pooled at his feet. Sarah. His voice cracked like a teenager's. What the hell is this? I set the mug down with a deliberate clink. Breakfast. He lunged to the papers, scanning frantically. The condo deed, highlighted in yellow. Tanya's name circled in red. Bank transfers, offshore ledgers, the forged gift tax forms. Kristen's deposition transcript, already signed. Tanya's jewelry appraisals. The sonogram. He flipped to the restraining order last. The one barring him from the riverfront tower, from her, from everything he'd built on my back. "You crazy bitch," he whispered, but the words trembled. "You had no right." I had every right. I stepped closer, heels clicking on the wet marble. 12 years of rights. You just never asked. The front door opened behind me. Megan strode in, blazer sharp, briefcase swinging like a weapon. She didn't knock anymore. This was war. "Morning, Daniel. Lovely day for truth, isn't it?" He whirled. Papers clutched to his chest. "Get out of my house." "Your house." Megan laughed, the sound bright and brutal. Check page 7. Marital property. And page 12. Temporary exclusive occupancy to Sarah, effective immediately. She dropped her briefcase on the island with a thud. "You have 10 minutes to pack a bag. Guest room only. Touch anything else and the sheriff escorts you." Daniel's face went purple. "You can't." "I can." Megan pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over a contact labeled Sheriff Ramirez. Clock's ticking. He looked at me, eyes wild. "Sarah, please. We can fix this. It was a mistake." "Mistake?" I pulled a folder from the drawer, the original, thick with every receipt, every lie. I laid it on the island like a deck of cards. "Mistake is forgetting anniversary. This is theft." I fanned the photos across the granite. Daniel and Tanya on the yacht, her in the necklace. Kristen in the hotel bed. Sheets tangled. The emerald ring on Tanya's finger, now circled with a post-it that read, "Pawned yesterday, $42,000." His mouth open, closed. No sound. "You wanted a new life with her, Daniel?" My voice was steel, honed by weeks of nights with Megan and the burner phone. Then start broke. He sank to the floor, back against the console, papers scattering. The lilies floated in the puddle like tiny white surrender flags. "The firm," he croaked. "They'll fire me." They already did. Megan slid a letter across. Termination notice, effective yesterday. Citing embezzlement. HR got an anonymous packet this morning. Same one the board received. And the DA. His head snapped up. Duh. Tax evasion. Wire fraud. Using company funds for personal gifts. She ticked them off on her fingers. "Felonies, Daniel. Plural." I crouched in front of him, close enough to smell his fear. Sour, metallic. "You taught me control, remember? Finances, friendships, what I wore. Now watch me use it." He grabbed my wrist, fingers digging in. "You'll ruin me." I twisted free, the self-defense move smooth. "You ruined yourself the day you decided I was disposable." Megan's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smirked. "PI says Tanya's at the condo, packing. Looks like she got the freeze notice, too. Accounts locked. Card declined." She's screaming at the concierge. Daniel's eyes filled. Actual tears. "She's pregnant." "I know." I stood, brushing imaginary lint from my skirt. "That's why the paternity test is court-ordered. If it's yours, you'll pay. If it's not, good luck explaining the trust fund to the next guy." He lunged then, a desperate scramble toward the stairs. Megan blocked him with one arm. 9 minutes. I followed him up, watching him stuff clothes into a duffel. Socks mismatched, shirts inside out. He kept muttering, "This isn't happening," like a prayer. In the bathroom, he grabbed his cologne, the one I used to love. I took the bottle, poured it down the sink. The scent filled the room, cloying and final. "Sarah," he tried again, voice small, "I loved you. You loved the idea of me. The quiet wife who asked no questions." I zipped the duffel for him. "That woman's gone." Downstairs, Megan had laid out the final blow, a printed email from the Cayman Bank. Account closed, funds seized pending investigation. The balance read $0. Daniel stared at it like it was written in blood. The sheriff arrived at 9:12. 2 deputies, polite but firm. Mr. Reed, time to go. He looked at me one last time. The man I built a life around now shrinking into a stranger. I'll fight this. You'll lose, Megan said, handing him a card. My office, when you're ready to settle. The deputies escorted him out. He didn't look back. The BMW stayed in the driveway, keys on the island, next to the empty coffee mug. I watched the cruiser pull away, red lights flashing silent in the morning sun. Megan poured herself coffee from the pot. Phase 1 complete. I exhaled, the sound shaky but free. The house was quiet, the lilies still floating in their puddle. I picked one up, twirled it between my fingers. Phase 2. Press charges. Full discovery. Make him watch every dollar disappear. She clinked her mug against mine. To reckoning. We spent the afternoon shredding his life further. I changed the locks, the alarm code, the Wi-Fi password. Megan filed the occupancy order. By noon, the house was legally mine. I boxed his remaining awards, taped the carton shut, labeled it donate. The office safe now empty. Got a new combination. The day I found the receipt. Evening came soft, the sky bruising purple over the suburbs. I sat on the porch with a glass of wine, the same spot where I'd waved goodbye to his lies for years. The street was empty, the neighbors' lights winking on one by one. My phone buzzed, not the burner, my real one. Unknown number. I answered. Tanya's voice, thick with tears and mascara. What did you do to him? I swirled the wine, watching the legs slide down the glass. Check your mail tomorrow. She sobbed, the sound wet and ugly. He said we were forever. The baby will have a father who learns consequences. I sipped, the Cabernet rich on my tongue. You built your castle on my foundation. It's crumbling. You bitch, she hissed, but it broke into a wail. Enjoy the view from the 18th floor, I said, while it lasts. I hung up. Inside, Megan had left the final envelope on the counter. Thick, sealed, addressed to Tanya Moore, 2407 Riverside Towers, Unit 1805. Inside, eviction notice, fraud complaint. Demand to return all gifts over $500. The condo was in foreclosure. The bank had been tipped too. I set the wine down, the glass leaving a red ring on the granite. The house smelled of coffee and lilies and freedom. I opened the fridge, took out the apples from yesterday. This time, I baked the pie for one. That night, I slept in the master bed, sheets cool and vast. No cologne, no face-down phone, no lies. The reckoning had come, and I was still standing. Tanya Moore stood barefoot on the heated marble of her kitchen, the certified envelope trembling in her manicured hands. The return address, Megan Hargrove, ESQ, looked official, final. She'd ignored the concierge's buzz twice, but the third time he'd insisted, "Ma'am, it's certified. Needs signature." Now the packet sat open on the island. Papers fanned like a bad hand of cards. The condo deed stared up at her. Sarah Reed's name stamped in bold where hers had been crossed out with single merciless line. Marital asset. Fraudulent conveyance. Immediate possession to plaintiff. The diamond necklace. The one Daniel had clasped around her throat 6 months ago, whispering forever, felt suddenly heavy, like a noose. She ripped it off, the clasp scraping her skin, and hurled it across the room. It skittered under the couch, sparkling mockingly in the dust. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Declined, declined, declined. The Amex, the Visa, the secret debit, all frozen. The fridge hummed, empty except for half a bottle of Veuve and a wilted kale salad she'd ordered from the cafe downstairs. Delivery wouldn't take her card anymore. She sank to the floor, silk robe pulling around her like spilled champagne. The river view, her view, paid for with someone else's dreams, mocked her through the glass. 18th floor. She bragged about it on Instagram, filtered sunsets and captions about living my best life. Now the best life was foreclosure papers and a sheriff's notice taped to the door by noon tomorrow. The sonogram fluttered from the envelope, landing face up. 20 weeks. The blob that was supposed to be their future. She pressed a hand to her belly, felt the faint flutter of movement, and sobbed harder. Daniel had promised a nursery in the second bedroom, pale gray walls, a rocking chair from Restoration Hardware. He'd transferred the down payment the day she peed on the stick. Our secret, he'd said, kissing her tears. Secret. The word tasted like ash now. Her phone lit up again. Daniel. She answered with shaking fingers. They took everything, she whispered. The condo, the cards. His voice was tinny, far away, hotel static. I know. I'm handling it. Handling it. She laughed, the sound breaking. There's a locksmith changing the locks right now. Sarah's lawyer says I have 24 hours to vacate. She crawled to the couch, retrieved the necklace, clutched it like a lifeline. You said it was yours to give. A pause. Muffled voices in the background. Megan, maybe Sarah. It was complicated, he said finally. Lawyers. Complicated. She stood, robe slipping off one shoulder. I'm pregnant with your complicated, Daniel. The line went dead. She stared at the screen. Call ended. Redial. Voicemail. Redial. Blocked. She hurled the phone. It cracked against the window, spiderwebbing the glass. The river kept flowing, indifferent. Across town, I stood in the marital bedroom, folding Daniel's monogrammed shirts into a box labeled Goodwill. The house smelled of lemon polish and finality. Megan's crew had been here all morning, inventorying, photographing, changing locks. The safe was empty, its contents now in evidence bags downtown. I ran my fingers over the dresser, where his cologne had sat for years. The bottle was gone. I poured it out weeks ago. The scent lingered faintly. A ghost. My own suitcase lay open on the bed. I packed light. Jeans, sweaters. The pearls Megan had returned. Real ones, appraised at $30,000. The tennis bracelet went into a velvet pouch. Insurance. The wedding album stayed on the shelf. I'd burn it later. Maybe. Or maybe not. Some wounds needed scars. The doorbell rang. Megan, holding a coffee and a clipboard. Tanya's served. P.I. says she's hysterical. Tried to bribe the locksmith with the necklace. She grinned. He laughed. Took photos instead. I zipped the suitcase. She'll be out by tomorrow? Sheriff's en route. Condo reverts to you at noon. We'll list it next week. Market's hot. She handed me the coffee. You okay? I took a sip. Still black. Better than. We walked through the house one last time. The kitchen island where the reckoning began, now bare except for the world's best wife mug, cracked from Daniel's final morning. I left it. The office, stripped of awards. The guest room where he'd slept his last night under this roof. I paused in the doorway, remembering the hesitant laugh I'd faked for years. Gone. Megan locked the front door behind us. The for sale sign went up that afternoon, discreet, professional. The neighbors would whisper, let them. I drove to the hotel Megan had booked, temporary, until the condo closed. Neutral territory. The room smelled of bleach and new carpet. I unpacked the pearls, laid them on the dresser, like a promise. My phone buzzed, P.I. update. Tanya loading boxes into a U-Haul, mascara streaks, no shoes. The emerald ring, pawned yesterday for $42,000, was already in evidence. She'd worn it anyway, like armor. I opened the curtains. City lights blinked below, the river a dark ribbon. Somewhere across it, Tanya was learning what rock bottom felt like. I didn't smile. Didn't need to. The victory was quiet, a steady hum in my chest. Later, in the bath, steam curling around me, I traced a faint scar on my finger, the knife nicked from weeks ago. It had healed pink and perfect. I thought of the apples, the pie I'd baked alone, the lasagna that had gone cold, the receipt that started it all. How had I let it go this far? The question floated up unbidden, soft as soap bubbles. I'd been the good wife, the loyal one. I'd built my world around his success, let him decide the finances, the friends, the dresses. I'd laughed hesitantly when he dismissed my dreams, told myself it was love, protection, partnership. I sank deeper into the water, letting it lap my chin. The truth was simpler. I'd been afraid of being alone, of failing, of the world without his hand on the wheel. He'd known it, used it, shaped me into someone who wouldn't question the cracks until a house was burning. But fire refines. I stood, water streaming off me, and wrapped myself in a towel. The mirror was fogged. I wiped the circle clear. The woman staring back had harder eyes, a set mouth. She looked like someone who'd learned to ask questions, who'd learned the price of silence. My phone buzzed again. Megan, Tanya's out. Condo's yours. Keys at the front desk tomorrow. I typed back, burned the robe. I slept without dreams, the pearls on the nightstand catching the moonlight. The marital home was packed, the envelope delivered, the luxury life dissolved into cardboard boxes and a U-Haul. Tanya's humiliation was complete. Mine was just beginning, quiet, deliberate mine. As I packed the last of my things the next morning, suitcase wheels humming across the hotel carpet, the question lingered like a bruise. How'd I let it go this far? The answer was in the rear-view mirror now, and I wasn't looking back. The condo smelled of fresh paint and possibility when I moved in. Soft sage on the walls, the color of new beginnings. Unit 1805, 18th floor, river sparkling below like it had never belonged to anyone else. I kept the balcony door open most days, letting the breeze carry away the last traces of Tanya's perfume. The furniture was mine now. A second-hand desk facing the window, an easel in the corner, canvases stacked like blank promises. I'd sold the marital home for more than asking. The check cleared the day the divorce finalized. Daniel signed without a fight. Too busy dodging indictments to contest the settlement. Half of nothing is still nothing. I started small. A pottery class at the community center. Clay cool under my fingers, shaping bowls that didn't have to be perfect. Then watercolor. Swirls of blue and gold that reminded me of the river at dusk. I painted the view from the balcony, over and over, until the skyline felt like mine. The first piece sold at a local cafe for $50. I framed the check, hung it above the desk. Proof. Mornings began with coffee on the balcony. No allowance, no approval needed. I wore what I wanted. Ripped jeans, oversized sweaters, the pearls when I felt like it. The necklace and bracelet fetched $80,000 at auction. I used it to seed the business. Reclaimed designs, hand-painted scarves, journals with quotes I wish I'd known years ago. Your silence is their weapon. Trust the unease. I set up an Etsy shop, then a website. Orders trickled in, then poured. Women messaged. I left them. I froze the accounts. Thank you. I shared my story on a blog. Anonymous at first, then not. From perfect wife to Phoenix. Post about the receipt. The knife nick. The day I baked pie for one. Comments flooded. You saved me. I'm not crazy. The hesitant laugh became a chorus of women finding their voices. I started a podcast. Quiet conversations over tea. No drama. Just truth. Episode 1. The First Lie You Swallow. Downloads hit 10,000 in a week. Lisa came over one Saturday, arms full of pastries from the gym cafe. We sat cross-legged on the floor, paint smudges on our jeans. You're glowing, she said, licking custard from her thumb. I'm breathing. I corrected. The difference felt vast. Megan joined us later. Briefcase, swap for wine. Daniel's pleading out. Community service, restitution. Tanya's on assistance. Baby's not his. She clinked her glass against mine. You won. Winning felt like waking up without dread. I hired a part-time assistant. Jules, 22, fresh from design school. She handled shipping while I painted, taught workshops, spoke at shelters. You can't rebuild trust, I told a room of bruised eyes and clenched fists, but you can rebuild yourself. The words settled in my bones, true as the river outside. Nights were the hardest. The condo was quiet, no face-down phone, no dismissive sighs. I'd wake at 3 a.m., heart racing, expecting his shadow in the doorway. I'd pad to the easel, mix cerulean and umber, paint until the panic bled into sunrise. The canvases piled up, storms giving way to calm seas, cracked vases holding flowers anyway. One evening, 6 months in, I hosted a launch party for the scarves. The living room filled with women. Some I knew, most I didn't. Laughter bounced off the sage walls, wine glasses clinking like bells. Jewels live-streamed. Donations poured in for the local DV shelter. I stood on a chair, voice steady. This isn't about revenge. It's about refusal. Refusing to shrink. Refusing to stay broken. They cheered. I cried. Quiet tears, the kind that heal. The business grew. Reclaimed Designs hit 6 figures. I hired Jules full-time, rented a studio downtown. The condo became home. Plant on a balcony. Bookshelves groaning. A dog named Receipt who snored at my feet while I worked. I dated once, twice. Nothing stuck. I was enough. I spoke at conferences, panels, podcasts. The moment I stopped laughing hesitantly, I'd say, was the moment I started living. Audiences leaned in, hungry for the map out of their own cages. Fall painted the river gold. I walked Receipt along the path where Daniel and I used to picnic, his hand possessive on my knee. Now my hands were paint-stained, free. I threw a stick. Receipt bounded after it, tail a blur. I laughed, full, unhesitant, the sound carrying over the water. The blog hit 1 million views. Messages became letters, then care packages, chocolates, books, a scarf someone knitted with phoenix in the pattern. I hung it by the door. One Thursday, the mail slot clattered. A single envelope slid through, thick cream paper, my name in Daniel's handwriting. The return address, a P.O. box I didn't recognize. My stomach dipped, old reflexes. I stood in the foyer, Receipt whining at my feet, the envelope heavy in my hand. I hesitated. The river glinted outside, steady and unchanged. I'd rebuild on its banks, stronger, surer. Whatever was inside couldn't touch that. But curiosity tugged. I slid a finger under flap, the paper tearing like a small surrender. The envelope lay on the kitchen island like a relic from another life. Daniel's handwriting slanted and familiar. The same loops he'd used on love notes tucked into my lunch years ago. Receipt circled it twice, tail wagging, sensing my tension. I poured coffee, still black, still mine, and sat on the stool, the river catching morning light beyond the glass. The condo hummed with quiet industry, Jules packing scarves in the spare room, the printer whirring labels for today's orders. I slit the seal with a butter knife, the paper parting clean, pages unfolded, 3, maybe 4. His cologne wafted up faintly, or maybe memory tricked me. I read without hurry. Sarah, I'm writing from a place I never thought I'd be. The halfway house's rules, no visitors, no calls out. They took my phone, my watch, everything but this pen. I have time now. Too much. I think about the mornings you made oatmeal just the way I liked it, the way you'd hum off-key while folding laundry. I took it all for granted. The excuses started early. The market, the stress, the need to provide. I told myself the trips, the gifts, the lies were for us, for the villa. In Italy we kept postponing. But they were for me, for the version of me that needed applause from strangers, from her. Tanya was easy, young, eager, no history to weigh us down. I thought I could keep worlds separate. I was wrong. Kristen was a mistake. Tanya was a fantasy. You were the truth I ran from. I see that now, in group therapy, in the mirror that doesn't lie. I controlled the money, the friends, the plans, because control was the only thing I had left when I stopped being the man you married. I'm sorry isn't enough. I know that. Restitution starts next month. $2,000 from my prison account. It's pennies against what I stole, but it's a start. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know the regret is real. If you burn this, I'll understand. If you read it, maybe you'll see the boy who proposed on the bridge under fireworks. He's still in here, buried under the mess I made. Daniel. I folded the pages once, twice, until they were a small square. Receipt wine pawing my knee. I carried the letter to the balcony. The breeze cool against my skin. The river flowed steady, carrying leaves downstream like secrets finally released. I remembered the quiet signs I'd ignored. The way his laughter grew clipped when I suggested a night out with friends. How his eyes slid past mine during dinner, checking the clock instead. The hesitant chuckle I perfected to smooth his silences. I'd told myself it was stress, ambition, love in its practical form. I dimmed myself to fit the shape he allowed. The lighter was in the kitchen drawer. Sleek, silver, a housewarming gift from Megan. I flicked it open, the flame dancing blue and gold. I held the corner of the letter to it, watching the edges curl black, then orange. The paper caught, words dissolving into ash that fluttered over the railing and vanished into the water below. I lost my husband. I whispered to the wind, to the river, to the woman I become. But I found my sanity. The flames licked the last page. Italy, apologies, the boy on the bridge, until nothing remained but heat and memory. I let the ashes go, brushing soot from my fingers. Receipt barked once, approving. Inside, Jules called, "Shipping's ready." I closed the balcony door, the click final. The scars waited. Silk painted with phoenix wings. Journals stamped with mantras. Orders from women who'd read my blog, listened to podcasts, worn my designs like armor. The business had outgrown the condo. Next month, we'd move to the studio downtown. Walls already leased in my name. I poured the cold coffee down the sink. Started a fresh pot. The scent filled the space. Rich, unapologetic. My phone buzzed. A new review. Wore this scarf to court. Felt unbreakable. Another. Your story gave me the courage to freeze the accounts. I smiled, the expression easy now, reaching my eyes. The moral was revenge. Daniel's fall was collateral, not the point. The point was refusal, to stay small, to swallow lies, to laugh hesitantly when my gut screamed otherwise. When someone hides their truth, let them. The truth always finds its way, sometimes in a receipt, sometimes in an envelope, sometimes in the mirror at 3 a.m. when you decide you're done. I hung the phoenix scarf by the door, wings spread wide. The river kept moving, the city woke below, and I stepped into the day, paint on my fingers, coffee in my hand, sanity intact. The perfect marriage was ashes. The perfect life was just beginning.